My name is Roy Moore. I'm the principal at Templeton Elementary in Calapooya Early. Also on this, and so I want to thank you all for coming tonight. This is our first student safety and well-being community forum, and our plan is to host a few of these conversations. And we often get asked about students and how we keep safe here in TSD. So these forums will help us share. No, you're good. These forums will help us share with you all the different practices, partnerships, try to really help. So the partnerships are extreme for all of us, and that's why we want to hear from you. We want to give you the chance to ask questions and give feedback, and we just need to work together, all of our kids safe, and the partnerships with you, with our students, with partners. So tonight we're going to introduce you to our TTS people, as well as some of our partners who have created kids. Before we get started, I'm introducing our Dr. Sue.
Thanks so much, Roy, and thank you so much, everyone, for being with us this evening. I'm going to kind of go down a list of individuals that you'll hear this evening, and this is even though we're so please don't hesitate to involve. With that, I'd like to share first this evening, Tigard-Tualatin, and their area, among other things, job portfolio has to do with well-being and safety. And so, as I call out your name, I have the Director of Bond and Operations, Darren Bernard, and then Director of Student Services, Carol Kidd, and Director of Technology, Susan Bernard. And then along with Principal Moore, have Tualatin Middle School Principal, Susan Kosmala, and Fowler Middle School Principal. And tonight, you're going to have the opportunity about what we are seeing, experiencing in our middle schools, and some of the hot topics that are coming up for our time of year. And then I'd also like to our community relations team, Director Tracy Rose. Where are you, Tracy? Right over there. And her trusty sidekick, which is Burton. Where are you? To go right up, right there. Thank you so much. And she does all the managing relative to our operations, and then communications operations, and then our operations administrator, Gomez, and who works on focusing on risk and safety. And next to him is Stace Shalito, who is part of our security team. Thank you, gentlemen. And then, as Rory mentioned, we this work alone. And so you see also here some gentlemen in uniform, and they are an integral part of our. We are fortunate to straddle 4 municipalities: Tualatin, Tigard, Durham, and City. And we have a deep and close relationship with all 4 of those city structures on a number of levels. And so typically we have something that impacts across all of our municipalities. We bring those partners close, and they have been phenomenal with us collaborating. So joining us for tonight's conversation are our law enforcement officers, and we've had a long-standing relationship with police departments, and are privileged to have many as our SROs in our schools. And so starting with Tigard PD, this evening we have SRO Nick Nunn and SRO Brian Imus. And then we also have SRO John Mooring with us here this evening. And then Maddie Bauer, are the community relations from Tigard PD. And Bob Rogers with Tigard PD as well. So thank you all, gentlemen, for being, and Maddie for being here with us. And from King City we have, and this evening Tualatin PD unfortunately was this, but they will be with us in upcoming events. And then so we want to thank you all for being here and sharing the work. And then we also, in addition to district staff, and city support, PD support. We also have community partners. Coral Smith with Safe Oregon, Connie Ramekers and Tigard High School students and Tigard-Turns the Tide. Connie, where are you? Back there somewhere, but I see Tigard-Turns the Tide. There we are. We've got our students. We have Cindy Hillier and Lily with Tualatin Together and Community Care. And then Kathy Wilson-Fay. Kathy, where are you? I saw you. And she's also back there. All right. And Kathy is our TTSD mental health and wellness coordinator. So you'll hear from her this evening, as well as the services that we provide internally. Again, how we externally can connect with all of our community partners. So with that, I think those are all the introductions. And Rory, I'm going to give it back to you to take the next step and start the conversation.
Thanks, Dr. Sue. Thanks, everyone, for being here. So our first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation with the district. So I'll let you each take a moment to share key areas within your job responsibility focused on student safety and well-being. And we'll start with Mike's work, Director Darren Bernard.
Thank you for coming tonight. I know it's a beautiful. I want to say, so first off, my name is Darren Bernard, Director of Operations. For a long. Also like to, I think called out earlier, we have Jarvis Mez and Stace Lito up there that are part of our department. And both Jarvis's. So the folks in our department have a unique. I think that's a real we have, not just a business lens, but actually with kids. So some of the areas that we're in charge of is first the bond that we're just wrapping up for investments in facilities. So we passed over $300 million, and happy to say that we were able to within budget, and that we will be able to maybe look at some things. Is there other safety items that we look at that we need to enhance? Some of the main from the bond for safety and front entrance where you guys came through, every one of our school facilities has a secure vestibule. So once school starts, anyone that comes in the building is in a vestibule or buzzed into the office and buzzed into school after that. We also changed out all the classroom button much quicker. Our schools, we added security cameras to most of our facilities and upgraded cameras. Used to look like Bigfoot when you looked at cameras. Now we actually, kids and what they're doing. And upgraded access control. One of the goals was to eliminate a lot of the outside access. So we took off locks, eliminated keys, and provided swipes. And so we do like to have all of our staff and community have limited access as they come into our building. With safety and security, it becomes sometimes inconvenient. So we hear that from our teachers. What do you mean I have to walk across the parking lot and come to the front door? And so we try to re-educate about, yes, it's inconvenient, but it's about safety. Want to know who's we also, a lot of our schools, principals and administrators and people in the building, they know how to operate their buildings. That's alarms, button that we've installed in all of our buildings. Press a blue button, locks all the doors, calls the protocols that we've been trained on. We also work with our administrators. They know where all the shutoff valves, shutoffs are, in case they need to. How to for access, how to get onto their cameras. We also we don't run them. We make sure following through. And also, my department's in charge of secondary security officers in high school, and we also work hand in hand with our community. The Tigard-Tualatin SROs work with them on a daily basis, and our department also has monthly meetings. Long established partnership, stronger all the time. Very nice thing is we all know each other really well. That synergy. We also work the fire and rescue.
Thanks, Darren. Now we're going to ask.
Hi, Carol Kinch. I'm the director of student. Very long. At one point, I was quality middle school principal. Long time. And my responsibilities in my department is primarily happen for inside the classroom, sometimes inside the classroom. But that's the way I like counseling, health, social learning, education, health services, all those that make our welcoming environment. So one of the big things we talk about is called PB. And I think that is making sure you're in about building a climate and safe, welcoming, positive. And so they always say you're spend the energy and front loading, structure, talk to, help. What about being? It's about building. And so we had a triangle. We'll talk about a triangle, but think about PBIS. What our school here, and we want to plan for everything. We often talk about tier one. Tier one is what do we want all students? Walk into a bus to welcome, sense of where to go, have many tax pause or have those. You have one hanging up, yeah. So the idea is we're going to teach how we want to behave in the environment. That includes the classroom, but it also how do you go to how do you walk through the cafeteria? How do you drive? How do you tell somebody to happen? So we want to make sure that we're instructing students about the environment. The second thing, know stronger self-awareness. How do you conflict? How do you hire those skills? So we want to teach that to all. Then we also plan extra. So that would be, that's where our counselors have mental health partnerships. Who is part of my team, our mental health and wellness course. We have partnerships with LifeWork, dance, contact, and there. And that the idea there is we have partnerships time in their life all the time. They're going to get that is our ultimate goal. And then there might need at school, might need rap service that has goal is that everybody have a place to isolate. Oh, when I always say happy people, our goal is to happy students, families, as best we can. That alone. Also say educate our part, guide and together partnership. So well, and then one of the probably about safety, and I don't take officers, but we all say something, have a positive or part, isolate. They're going to say something. They're going to say, I saw something online. I heard somebody talking about this in the locker room. That is our, don't feel comfortable telling Safe Oregon and Oregon. That is our, some of our tragic, most of our events we, and so that would be part of our collaboration department practitioner follow up with, and that is a multidisciplinary team that goes assessment department is always college process every possible.
Thanks, Carol. Director Susan Bernard, can you please share?
I think you're over there. I can't quite. Unlike Inch, Director Kim, the things that we send home from my department, I hope do not end up in the laundry. Those would be the student iPads and the Chromebooks. Thanks to our passing of our bond in 2017, out of the 300 million, 18 dedicated to technology or technology for the classroom. And from those funds, we were able to put a one-to-one program together that ironically came to fruition fall of 2019. By 2020, we were in a place where we could do remote learning at the time and had devices with kids. It's always a balance in our department. Everything that Carol was just talking about what we try to teach kids face-to-face needs to transition to their online environment as well. And what we try to do is provide opportunities for kids in a safe place where it's kind of a sandbox where they can play around with social media internally, a fenced area. They can look at trying to provide feedback that's positively reinforced and not negative in a place where we can teach them right and wrong, and those accidents happen here. So we need to find that balance between making sure our kids are ready for whatever college or career they move into as they move out of high school, but also try and help them manage those devices in a way as they learn and grow and develop in a way that's healthy. And I think that's what we're all battling with as we learn about all the new technology that's coming around that we cannot stop. But how do we harness that? How do we teach our kids at the right level and the right age to use it appropriately just well? So just a little bit of what we do from a tech point. I might out on you just a little here, but just want to give you some of the nuts and bolts that's in place. All of the devices that we give to students, they go home for 6th grade on up. And I think 4th and 5th grade, it depends on the teacher. And then they stay in the classroom by and large when they are young, pre-K to 3rd grade or 4th grade. All those devices are managed through a central system. So if you have an iPhone and you can go to the App Store, kids don't have the App Store. They have a PTSD App Store. So we approve, it's an allow list. We allow them to have certain apps on their devices, and that goes through a vetting process. If we have a vendor that we use, we have a data confidentiality agreement that vendor needs to contract with us, partner with us, so that we are all on the same page. Nobody's sharing information. So with regard to student safety and data safety, we make sure that everybody that we work with, that kids log in to their devices or to their resources, protected, and we have there. So kids both in the high school can't install extensions, and then students on their iPads can only install apps that we allow. And then on the internet, so the browser is on all these devices. We have an internet filter. The filter is required by federal regulation for us to get some funding, and that requires us to block specifically graphical images that are inappropriate. We also go beyond that to look and try and find that balance again between what's educationally appropriate and what's disruptive. So we have always gone with a pretty open policy after the graphical depictions, trying to give the opportunity for teachers to use resources within the classroom that are appropriate in real world experiences. And sometimes we have to pull that back a little bit because it's disruptive to the classroom. We also have to be careful because the high school might be using a site and the middle school may not want that site enabled. So we're trying to find a balance again between different age and appropriateness by age level and development. And sometimes students are invited, sometimes that's voluntold, into a more restrictive group so that it locks down their internet access to just educational sites. So it'll take YouTube, it'll take off some of the things that are available that might be used in a classroom that's not specific to a curriculum per se. And then we try to keep them in there for 2 weeks or so, kind of training wheels, and then put them back out so they can figure out what that balance is on their own, ideally, without us intervening. This is why we're here, to intervene and help get them back on track. So we've got some of those systems in place.
Thank you, Susan. And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the role of technology tonight. It's a big topic. But I do want to ask all three of you another question, which is just simply, can you share an example of how your teams are successful partnering with our families and communities around this topic of safety? And then is there an example that you also have about an opportunity to strengthen around safety? And same order we went in before.
Okay, there we go. I'd be quick. I saw you looking at the clock going, okay, good. Okay. One area I think work that we've done at our schools is just the collaboration that we have. That was identified as a priority, one of many priority areas in our bond that we're wrapping up. And we were able to engage with community members, with staff members, administrators, with our local police partners, architects, try to visit other facilities across the state and try to learn from other schools of what. So great opportunity to collaborate and dream. Opportunity to pass this on. What are some of the priorities we're safer? And we talk about that. It's really around the building. And then what Carol speaks to oftentimes, behaviors once you're inside that building, what makes it. And so I think that was an example of probably a 1.5 year long example. Engaging with our community, identify priorities wisely, think an opportunity coming right up as we're hopefully going to go out. Start that same process again with our community and engagement and asking about some of the priorities for smaller. But there are some areas that we want to make sure address and safety. Definitely one of them. We want to done enough, or they still need to work on. What else can we do to handle? I'll be coming up, and that opportunity also includes plug here that we'd love for community members to join or reach out to be part of those committees. We're going to talk about some fun stuff like the H programming, but also say playgrounds, field use, a variety of things. So let us know. We have a wide open invitation. Engagement, more the better. All of your every community, every school facility age operates different. I'd like to hear it. And then quick, more recent, an opportunity that we had was with the Tigard-Tualatin SROs when we did a community engagement. So when about a year and a half, rows in schools more and more was becoming a question. If we really open it up to have the conversation, what is the role of our SROs? We want to hear from students, hear from our administrators, and so our district really navigated a year-long. And again, the goal was always to be, what can we do better? How can our SROs be here in our schools to engage, role model, help kids feel safe? And out of that, we learned a lot, positive and negative, and learned a question pros. Those opportunities to hear how we're doing, not put up that wall, but to really, that's part. Really want to hear it. And how can we get better?
So partnerships, example. So obviously, when we're talking about school climate and culture, we're partnering with a lot of so from education, I've say about it. And as we move up in the have more greater part, LifeWorks Best, we have care. Those are individual counselors. Make sure that students have access to it and healthcare. We partner with our also at having school as they and is not always that happens. A family at the level for us to have a perspective about what happens hard. Their partnership that Kathy Wilson trying to build these partnerships our community safe. The one thing that I also want to add that everybody has a different, so it's really important that we look at our community. And there's physical safety, also social for all of us. And so one that we have really last several partnerships, different organizations that students represent. So we have partnerships with PERCO that works with our Pacific Islander group and network, works with our Black family. That is really one, again, you and that's part of a community. Sometimes that's hard when you're talk like or that we have translations. But they're a big thing when you're trying to make sure you talk to someone. So lots of partnerships that are, I would say, areas of improvement. Always, our world changes. Director Bernard, technology, vast world out, and our students navigating that world in a way that we. So I think that is, I don't even, I would call it a challenge. Best, but it is challenging to make sure that our student environment time pops up. And other piece know is cities have a shortage of therapists, staff, and so there's not a lot of resources outside. Our schools actually have probably, and some of ours that resource. So it in my world again a challenge to have that was a staff and crap team for our family. That right now it takes on a wait.
So I know it probably won't be very surprising, but I took this question very linearly. And so the things that we have been able to work through in partnership with our SROs or some administrators, certainly not the intention of why we put devices out with our kids. But once we did that and we assigned a device to a child, we know what device they have. Therefore, we happen to know what device that device is connected to. Happen to know what access point or Wi-Fi they're on, which happens to be in room 35. So there's been circumstances where we literally have had lost or missing students, and folks have come to the IT department to ask us where was the last time their device was located and what time. There's been circumstances that helps us see that they were here for the day, there until they left. There's been times when I love things that we just assume sometimes, and I get that kids still developing. They see school as free Wi-Fi. So we found kids outside the gym because there was free Wi-Fi, sneaking away from home, and we could tell exactly where they were connected, see on the filter what they were doing, innocent enough, right? So able to track down and use sources. We have one of the things that I didn't mention is social media sites. We block social media apps, but that doesn't mean our kids are not clever enough to use the apps that they do have available to them, social media way, whether it's Google Docs or sharing something. One of the things we were talking about earlier today is really being nuanced on the language that we use, whether you're texting somebody. Devices don't allow texting, but that verb of texting really might be messaging somebody, which might be two Google Docs open or one Google Doc open that's shared where they're messaging back and forth or they're sending an email. So some of it is that nuance of just trying to figure out how our tech savvy kids are leveraging the devices that we put in their hands for education for purposes that are more entertaining for them than perhaps a high-ready lesson. And then the other thing that we have done in the past, and we cannot track where devices are. When they leave our network, the filter goes with them. So whether they're at McDonald's or home or grandma's, all the filter that we have in place on our device travels with it. If it's a big enough concern and our SRO comes to us or administrator comes to us, there's a procedure we go through, but then we acknowledge that it's a safety concern. We can put the device in lost mode. That tells the device, too, that it's in lost mode, so whoever has it knows that it's now in lost mode and can be found. So that gives us a way to actually identify it once it's in lost mode. Then we actually can try to, with GPS, identify at least within a range, kind of like what you do with your kids with Find My Phone, at least an area for where those are. Sometimes we use that to find the devices in lockers, but other times we use it if kids come to us for concern on safety. I would say from my perspective, the partnership that from an IT perspective that we would continuing to be open in conversation about what that balance is to continue to make sure our kids are ready for when they go out to college and career, but also what is impacting their day-to-day as an 11-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 17. So every technology is changing every single day, and we are still trying to keep up with it, and it's just be that way perhaps indefinitely. So trying to have a partnership with families and kids, and educators and teachers, SROs about how we live with these devices and we prepare our kids for the future and hopefully don't have harm along the way.
Thanks, Susan. Thank you all. I'm going to transition over to our law enforcement partners, our SROs. And so before we start to do that, I just want to personally say as a principal, deeply value the relationships. I have personal experience actually with both I'm Officer Imus and Officer Nunn helping me out in various situations. And so it's a relief to know that I can make those phone calls. But the real value of the role has to do with the fact that they are a presence in our credibility with our kids when there are situations that are hard, a lot easier to deal with them because they are there and they're seen as trusted. And so I want to ask you guys a couple of questions and really just kind of hear your thoughts on things. So I'd like to have you guys reintroduce yourself and then share your role with the department, how long you work, and why you like working in schools, or what do you get out of working in schools?
So once again, my name is Nick Nunn. I've been with the Tigard Police Department for 16 years now, since 2000. And prior to that, I worked at the sheriff's office. So I've been in law enforcement for 23 years. I've been an SRO. I'm currently assigned to Tigard High. Prior to the high school, I was actually the SRO at. So we're in a 4-year rotation. So after 4 years, come out. Then if another spot opens up, we can fit in for that. So I actually was at Fowler. I came out, did roll for about a year. Spot came open at the high school. I put in and went to the high school. The reason I do it, I actually went to college in education. I was studying to be a teacher. I always wanted to work with kids, and then I kind of fell into law enforcement. And when an SRO position opened up, it was kind of like, I get to work with kids and I get to be a kind of the best of both.
Officer Brian Imus, Tigard PD. I've been with Tigard PD about 14. As Officer Nunn said, I was the SRO at Tigard High School for 4 years. Loved it. Reason I got into it was I was in the police academy. We had a break of like a week. They didn't know what to do with me. So week off, and they had dare camps. And so they sent me to that. Had a lot of fun, and the connection that the SROs there had with the kids, fantastic to see. I also have kids myself that are middle school, elementary school age, so that's a good thing in this role and a bad thing because I can't go home to them. That's and just I think school safety, connecting with the kids and being a part of their development, probably the most, I think, highest, but safe to you, and that we're part of a team. There's a team of having them develop the right way, making the right choices, very of deciding which direction they're going to go in life, and you get part of that, which is awesome.
Thank you both. I have another question for you that's kind of a two-parter.
All right.
So can you share what a day in the life of an SRO looks like, what it looks like in schools? And then secondly, can you talk about one or two of your top concerns as an SRO about school safety?
Yeah, I mean, a day in the life is similar to any police officer, right? We don't know exactly what our day is going to be like to go to school. Throughout the school day, there might be concerns that arise. Our administrators, we work with our counselors very closely as well. Safe Oregon. Does everybody know what Safe Oregon is? Everybody? Hope. If you don't, that's okay. But Safe Oregon, tips come in of possible safety. So we'll work with our administrators on that. We work. Part of my day I like to do every day is connect. That's the fun part for me. So during breaks or passing time, we're always out talking to the kids, building those connections. We have lunch and activity here, so I like to go out on activity and play volleyball or basketball or football, throw the football around with the kids, and just try to connect with them in a variety of different ways. What was the second part of the question? Two concerns?
Yeah, what's a concern or two that you have when you think
Definitely this age is the power that they have with phones. Because that gets them into a lot of trouble. Either there's some issue that happens at school, and then they have social media, so it just festers overnight. And then on social media, back and forth, and that's how a lot of have any fights at school and stuff. It's typically they said this on social media or they said that. And then obviously Another one for us, big one, is just making sure it's safe. This day and age, just being a presence here, I think, is a big deal. Having officers helping the kids and the staff feel.
And I think having worked at the middle school and the high school, a lot of it translates. The high school, they're not as much at lunch. You get, yeah. So at the middle school, you're out there playing at the recess and stuff. High school, I'm not seeing them at recess because once lunch starts, the upperclassmen are in to go. The freshman, sophomore. But one of the big things I find is just being around. During all the breaks, during lunch, I'm out in the commons, being visible to kids. They love giving you high fives. I think they all know everybody's name, all know my name. They know the other SROs, so when they're in the building, they're all, Sir Imus. So just being a presence and being around the kids. My office is right in the main office, so when you walk in, my right there. I have a tendency to buy snacks. I have a lot of kids that come into my office and just want a snack, and they'll sit there and chat with me, probably skipping class. But it's a good opportunity to just socialize with them, which helps because then when there are situations they need some, they come into my office and most of them already know me. At least they've seen me, and I'm somebody that they've seen around. Whereas I wasn't there, and they needed a police, have some stranger that they probably never seen, and they're supposed to tell something to them. I think that's hard. When I'm visible every day, and I go into classes sometimes, and I talk in classes. Every driver's ed class that they have, guest speakers in and talk driver's ed, and none of the questions are about driving, but I answer them. But just being able to socialize with them helps. And I think my day to day, like he said, changes every day. Like today, I came in, there was a note on my desk saying, this student wanted to stop by and talk. I call her down and gave me a story about something that happened to her, wanted some advice. So kind of talked that through. And the bell rang and we were out lunch, and I'm talking with the admin and talking. That's kind of our day to day. Have kids in, I call kids, out of that type of. So when we used to, right now, currently, Tigard has 3 SROs. Myself at the high school, and I also work side, and we have 1 in each middle school. And the middle school SROs kind of with the feeder elementaries.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you sharing that. We're going to transition into introducing Kelsey. And Kelsey is the Public Information Officer for the Tigard Police Department. Works very closely with our staff on all things and working with our students and community. Yeah, Officer Nunn, do you mind giving her the mic? So Kelsey, we have a question for you. Can you please share with us how the city has prioritized school and how our community has invested in those values?
Is it on? Great. So my name is Maddie Bauer. I'm Kelsey's partner at Tiger. So we went out for a levy supported by voters. And in that levy, supported 8 patrol officers, in addition to SRO, advanced crisis, and but with that we went SRO. Or second part.
No, that was all I have.
Awesome. Yeah. We have more information about that online. Website, or I have little flyers in the back as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. And so we're going to switch gears now and talk to our principals, Principal Van Fleet and Principal Kosmala. So please share with us a little about yourselves and how long you've been in education work in middle school.
Well, since I have a mic, I suppose I get that honor. I grew up in a family of educators, and I knew for a fact where my trajectory dabbled a little bit. College major changes a lot, kept coming back to it. Had the absolute experience. Started as language arts instructor at South High School. Track, very much to what Officer Imus is talking about, throwing the football, basketball. Those connections with kids in the classroom side was incredibly rewarding. And so for me, there was just no other other than continue on. So along that journey, I've had the opportunity to become a principal at high school. I was at Tigard-Tualatin, and I've worked with both of these SROs for before coming over to Fowler Middle School in the last 4 years. To me, it's there's no apples to apples comparison in what my life before I moved to middle school, because that transition happened at the same time as the pandemic and online. So I don't have a comparison to fall back to of what that. I've lived with a middle schooler myself for years at home. I have 2 day group, and I'm coming on board shortly. So I am very much immersed in middle school life, whether it's at work or at home. My wife knows sometimes I have to go upstairs and shut the door if kids are over playing, because I kind of had my middle school feel for the day. But yeah, it has been an awesome transition to watch our students band when they are probably most impulsive that they'll ever be in their life, and even more so now in this post-pandemic setting. And we'll probably get the opportunity to dive a little bit. Social media and pieces coming. But for me, this has been an incredibly watching our students go from that 6th grade band to that 8th grade band, and they come in with these deer in the headlights, eyes wide. I'm this youngest kid in the building. The 8th graders are all this tall. I have gone from a sheltered elementary to a 7-period transition day, and watching those kids learn to adjust and acclimate. Not easy for 6, but by the time they leave, graders, looking at the confidence that they have, excitement they have for life, and regulated skills that they developed over 3 years has just been astronomical. So it is a fun, rewarding, and exhausting profession to be part of.
Hi, and I am strict, although I have Portland Public before I came. This isn't. I'm not new to. Why middle school? Well, I guess I've been a middle school principal. This will principal. K-8. So I've tried everything prior to teaching. But why middle? That you growth from childhood to adulthood, quasi. I think it's but not really. So 6th graders are still very much driven by adult approval, and they respond well to adult relations about how peer promote positive peer influence, build basic peer pressure. And so it's really complex. They're learning so many things. Brain growth, a lot of challenge with that, but also I just see our kids, they're so positive watching them. They really care about one another. So I think that's what drives me. I love them. They're crazy. They make me laugh. They're super unpredictable. They have craziest rush. It all makes perfect sense. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Sue. I have 2 more questions for you. So, next one is just share a day in the life of middle behaviors that are concerning to you, and what system try to address.
When you ask about day in the life, first thing that comes into my mind, which day are we talking about? Every day is different. There's not a predictable day in education, and specifically not. So for me, when I think about this, we have our 3 middle schools. It's a really big, comprehensive middle school in TTSD at each of our 3 sites. I would say 95% of our student actions during the course of the day are appropriate, positive, connecting with each other. They're getting to class and want to learn. So when we talk about the triangle that Carol mentioned earlier, the zone, instant great experience, like that's where we see bulk of our life lived. We also have some outliers and some outlier days. And I like to say that we don't have bad kids anywhere in our system, but sometimes we do have some decisions. This is middle school where students are testing out their thoughts and their boundaries. Sure, if we reflect back on our middle school days, we may have pushed a boundary a time or two. I'm so glad my parents aren't here right now to call me out this one. I guess when I'm thinking about a typical day, the interactions are great. And I had heard a comment about social media earlier, and it keeps coming back to my mind. And yes, that is where a lot of the shenanigans might fall within actual middle school day. When we were back in school, we might have passed a note to somebody, and it went around. Maybe it was a love note, or maybe it was a mean note, whatever. Now that's on a screen, and that's being shared, and it's being exponentially broadcast through. So it might have happened on Saturday that didn't mean anything to one person. All of a sudden is tumult and chaos on a Tuesday when it gets shared in a class and it's viral. And we can't pull that back, and our students can't pull that back. I do see that when I think safety, I think very much mental safety as much as physical safety. We've got some awesome uniforms over here that help on the physical safety point, but the mental health is so much more complicated. So the partnerships that we have with student service, with Kathy Faye Wilson, district office, that is more important now than ever experienced. So I have a range of interactions with our students, and I think they would say that they have a lot of ranges of interactions with me, where most of those are positive. They're high fives, they're fist bumps. We're asking about days, but we also, as we sit in these, have to sit down with some challenging conversations with them, hold them accountable for how they're treating each other. Sometimes it's the thoughts, the words that happen. So I wish I could get a little bit more detailed in what a typical day looks like, but it's a variety of supporting students, celebrating students. Today we opened with fist bumps. We brought our 8th graders into an assembly, and we probably 75 fist bumps, which are the public awards recognitions students for being respectful, for being responsible, and being kind. So having that kind of assembly and bringing all the kids up front and taking the photo and celebrating them, that's what we try to do each and every day wherever we can. And when we have these bigger ceremonies, it kind of allows that climate and culture in the building to be around those positives. And we also have our corrective comments that we weave in there about continuing to be kind at the same time. So, I mean, that's a little taste of some of what our days look like and some of the challenges.
talking. Then they have that actually no feathers on it. That's where happening with put anything we want on the thing. They're not. They don't. Like the hardest thing about most the kids who are like, but it was a, and that those 4 words, it was a joke, are like everybody's get out of jail. But it was a joke. So we really talk a lot about intent, because what we intend is like, oh, we're all friends, and impact was, wow, you just. And those are hard conversations. It's hard conversation for kids to. A big part of the day is getting when they're able talking about what did that actually and when it's online and I can do it behind, it's really hard to hold adults accountable to the things they're saying. That's where talk about partnership. I see myself as your partner. Familiar face out there, we're partners, because I'm going to nudge you about like, get on your kid's phone, you pay the bill, you own it, in there, see what they're doing. Take off the apps that you don't like. Don't let them. Probably don't. That I know we need to do what those are, what they, how to stay. I've had a couple of incidents last process. That's a big person impact. Thought it was, but it wasn't. Now, whole model of culture back because people heard it, put made a video, and now 30% grade is. That's where we're at. So escalate that. I can be out trying to. How do we trust that better than that's really
Turned it back on. Thank you both. I have one more question. We have. Give an example. Partners, positive.
I think of a couple examples that jump into my mind. Positive partnerships with our community. When we have the opportunity to bring families together in the building, whether we're coming for a play, band recital, whatever it is that's bringing that connection. During our Hispanic Heritage Month, Latinx Family Night, and watching our families come together, watching our students who had rehearsed, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students who rehearsed like 20 minutes worth of data. It was phenomenal, the talent in our 11. We had a loteria that went on. It had outpouring of support and amazing food and celebration and fun. And those are the kind of events that at the end of the day, at the end of the week, end of a very year, they fill the bucket. And it fills me with pride to see that our community comes together to celebrate each other. So all of those events have been blissful for the Fowler in the middle. I think of other positive connections. I hate using Safe Oregon as positive, tips that come there. Some as simple as my teacher won't let me eat in class. Well, that's not really crisis, but we can talk that. But we have others that come in that's like, hey, I heard a rumor of a bomb or something that's way more significant. When those reports come in, it does a couple things for me. One, it shows that there's trust. It shows that there's trust in our kids and in our parents to use that system to tell us that there's a concern. So that's number one, and that is a huge highlight. So as those tips come forward and come through, and it tells me a second thing, that we have been able to educate our family that this resource is out there. We had an example at Fowler Middle School about weeks ago where a similar type event happened. A Oregon tip comes through. We are able to immediately jump on the origin of the concern, partner with our SROs, partner with our police office, and make sure that we can do welfare checks, that we can partner with families, and continue to untangle even hours when no one's in the building to ensure that the next day and the next week and the next year, our kids, our students, our staff, our communities, and we can't do that without the collective mindset. We're going to work together to keep this building safe. The vestibules are awesome, but it's the communication that we have, trust, that truly keeps kids safe. It is also the support that our students and our families get around mental health, around knowing that you're valued, cared for, and if, as Director Kinch mentioned, if you're a happy person and feel connected, the odds are you're going to have more safe behaviors. And I see that day in and day out. And that's why the kind of idea of the fist bumps and the celebrations that we have in the building are just so incredibly important. It's creating that safe, celebratory feel, that feel for each and every one of our students that I do. That is that first line always in keeping folks safe, but then it's those partnerships with parents, with you, that can reach out to our SROs, to our administrators, so we can look into any kind of bottom of them and then get right back to our families. Hey, we're good. We've got this. Or, hey, there is a concern here, and now we have more info. All depending on that.
So like having it was like kind of an amazing thing. That's been fabulous. Care coordination. Who knew such a thing could happen? There's been had Spanish for our Latino asked for us to come and talk about, and but very happy with the results. So they had 70. Yeah, so like just that, building the word out in the community, and parents are for, right? Like, tell me what you figured. Have excited for partner. Yeah, like this is this before. So yeah, it feels really good to be part of it. So at a rate, basic needs, meeting needs for problems. I would say that's really been kind of the thing of this last year, is not to figure it out. It's a how do we get.
And Rory, one final piece on this is if I could ask for more support, or if there's a way to continue to keep pushing into the building, more support from mental health specialists, counselors. We were able to add a counselor at the middle schools just this last year, and that was incredible investment in our students, in health, in the welfare, in the connections, another trusted adult. So yes, anytime we have opportunities to get to this realm, especially now coming out of the isolated feels that a lot of our students and families, I could not more strongly add.
Thanks for sharing that, Andy, and thank you both for sharing questions. We want to kind of shift gears and kind of revisit technology a little bit. So Director Bernard, I just have a question for you. From what you've heard from our principals, what are some of the mind? How are you and your team working in partnership with our buildings around safety, specifically?
Great question. My first thought as I was hearing conversation, and we've had this conversation at the district for many moons and have had technology in kids' hands since 2011 and then one-to-one since 2009. So this is not new. But when something is new, we put a lot of effort towards training digital citizenship and appropriate lessons on how to use devices in a way that's safe and positive and being a good citizen. I would love nothing more than to bring some more emphasis and highlight to that. I think that's one thing that we could do a little bit more systematically as we begin the school year. That was part of what I went through, and we've been talking about that in the past as well. I think a lot of it is what did here at Tualatin, where we bring families in and educate families around sharing what we know, sharing what the families know, what they're seeing, and how we can balance that. I think it's a huge point to make is that the device, the technology that the kids bring in with their phones that we don't have access to, manage in any way, and then just the fact that we say we block social media. Kids are very savvy. If you look up, not even sure what the word was, but it would be so strange. If you have the scenario, I think if you go to the Google Images website in Spanish and type in a certain string, you can bypass our filter. Right? There's so many different ways around it, and kids are very savvy. They may not be emotionally ready for all the things that they are doing, but there's some brilliant kids out there, and it's great that they're getting challenged. But they tend to focus it in ways that we wouldn't like them to do. So they find ways around our internet filter, or they're using their phones in a different way. I think the key for my department is to figure out what that balance is around the tools that we provide to students. We look at the iPad. It looks like a large iPhone. It looks like an entertainment device, and making sure that's used appropriately in school, and we give kids an opportunity to learn the skill that they're going to need on that device, and then try to work through the differences between that and a cell phone. There's lots of conversations over the years about how good kids are at working with technology because they see them working on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok. That does not mean that they know how to use technology in a real world situation and actually learn how to share a document or collaborate well in an environment. So I think those are the nuances, just trying to keep a difference between the social media and the phones that the kids are using, or what they're using for personal use, and then what we use for educational use, and trying to continue to educate them on how to survive and grow in a very technologically rich world that we have, while also not clouding that with some of the social media negative things. So trying to figure out that balance, and I think a lot of that's conversation and educating us and educating parents.
Thank you, Sue. We're at a point in the night where if people have questions, you'll have the opportunity to ask here. And so what we'll do is we'll just hand you a microphone. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and then whoever you want to direct your question to.
Hello, I'm Lil. Oh, I can't. That is weird. I'm Lily Story. This is specifically to kind of both of the principals we have today, but wants to context. I'm part of classmen, so I'm in kind of a very unique position about like middle school stuff, especially from. And I hear a lot about bullying that I'm working with. Question: what are you guys not punish bullies, but instead bullied? That's something. How are we bring that?
Well, so on the wall in my office, I actually, what does progressive discipline look like? Start with like, nothing happens. and it goes up to you're out of school for as many days as I decide, right? And so then we kind of go through what does this look like, and I actually think it's response, like how fair. I think that I believe firmly restorative lessons. A lot of talk around us are because the thing often hurts back some part of a person's identity. So we do talk a lot about things about sexism, about all of these bringing though as a person. We're really trying to think how do we feel good about the identity, also have as not being so there's a lot going on there. Process. I think part of it is just like here's what I can giving them
Great examples. And what I would add to that is we can't ever tell one student or family consequences into something. And being able to sit down and talk them through, so nor can I tell anyone what happened to in a similar situation. That kind of resonates. For me, however, the next steps in that are some of the most in making sure that we can circle back and do some check-ins. But, hey, is this still we work through this concern? I can be transparent with and let them know that, hey, partnered with the other student, I've partnered with the family. They're receptive, they understand. So when we use that kind of language, talk about what the consequence is, it does allow parents and the victim in this kind of situation, at least they're being held accountable, maybe at home and at school in some way, shape, or form. But by checking back in, how are we doing a week later? Feeling good? Do you have any more concerns about that? And if the answer is no, this is working. That's awesome. And if, they're still doing this, I've got your back. We're going to keep working on it. So they may not actually put that consequence. They're going to know that we're tethered together. We're working through. I'm going to be support as long as it takes to remedy this problem. And we do the absolute best we can on that, changing mindsets.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I have 2 kids in elementary school. I have a number of questions, and I think hopefully most of them, if you want me to stop asking. So first, Safe Oregon. So I know about it. I have 2. I also have 2 stepkids who went to Tigard High School. So I knew about it from them, but even I have trouble finding it on the website. So I'm curious, how do you educate, do you show kids where to find it, and do you talk to them about it in school? And then how do you better educate? I know about it, and I have.
Well, I'll start with that. Tells us we need to do a better job of making it jump out on our pages and visit parents. But for students at the beginning of the year, when we go over the class rules, we go over supports, counselors, all the tours, that is one of those features. So not only do we have the Safe Oregon tip line, but we also have another student concern form that can be generated iPad app. So we've got a couple different vehicles and a couple different ways. And I know in our newsletters, we push out that communication. But as I reflect back, we do that a lot started here. That's something that can be ongoing to remind, just in case we translate late or someone missed that communication front. So I appreciate that.
My next question is around the digital citizen. Oh, sorry. Okay. Susan, I think you mentioned digital. That maybe I'm getting lessons. When do they start? At what age? And then, they cover? To be totally honest, like third grader. Her older brother's Chromebook that like was commissioned from and we had that talk with her. She doesn't have access to that. But I'm curious, at what age do they cover things like, sharing maybe dangerous photos?
We start in kindergarten, and it goes through high school. I think the easiest thing as a parent is to go to Common Sense Media. That's the curriculum that we use. It's got a fantastic set of resources for parents. It's got a review on movies and apps and all sorts of things that are parent-centered, but it also has a really good comprehensive list of digital citizenship lessons that are appropriate by grade, and they're available in multiple languages. So we typically, kind of like the newsletter idea, we hit it hard at the beginning of the year. The Safe Oregon app is on the iPads as well. That should be the very first thing that is done before they roll into the rest of the school year. Kind of like getting your desk ready or getting, orienting where you need to go for lockers, whatever grade level it is. It's one of those things that I think has fallen back a little bit as it becomes more normal. But I think it's one of those things that's very important that we continue to repeatedly. And all the things that you mentioned about sharing first name and last name, pictures, and who you share with. And basically, all of it says don't share any of that information. It's also a continual educational process with our teachers, right? So that they are very comfortable having that conversation and leading those lessons. And I think that's another reason why Common Sense Media is really good, because you can step through some of that with your son or daughter as well as you run into certain circumstances, so you don't have to come yourself. It's really
thank you so much. I will definitely check that out. And this is one of my last questions. I think mostly for the principals, but what is the right age to give a child? Fear of missing out is real. Can and do kids survive without it? A third grader really thinking that maybe it's not for her, and I'm
Sorry. So I am a big fan of the Wait Till 8th movement, which says that really never mind. The Wait Till 8th, so that a student really needs to be older than 13 access, unfettered access. And it's based on sort of the developmental changes in kids between 11 and 5, building cells that have never been used before. So when we start things like social media are designed for our child Pavlovian style to respond to thumbs down, you're actually changing how the pathways are built. So the less access to that type of stimulus, better, because opportunity to grow their brains in a natural way. Does it mean that every kid who's on social media early becomes a no, but we see that increased anxiety, depression, and we have kids who literally can't take the phone out of their hand. Like, we have a no phones rule. We're not punitive about it. I just chase around, like, put it away in your pocket of your bag, in your pocket of your bag, in your pocket of your bag. And they do, and then they take it out, and then they put it out, but they cannot put it down. They're obsessed with, did they like that? Look at it. How many books have I had? Did anybody respond to that? What did they say? And so that never shuts down. We have kids at night, and they have to check when they're up in the morning. That's worrisome to me. So I've raised 2 kids. I have 2 in college right now. And I didn't know as much as I learned with my second one first. Super struggled with anxiety and super struggled with worries about her appearance. Like, could not put her phone down. It was a lot. There was a lot of management of that child between now. And with my younger one, much more cautious, put a lot more rules in place. Self-managed adulting. think that's one tiny little that is gospel, but speaking as an educator, I see that as harmful for distractions from the parent. Impact that I'm a huge fan of waiting. I can fact that without every day they can use phones here if they need to reach you, and we are seeing more and more parents who are opting not to give their because of those. I highly encourage you to research, check it out, make it no reason, even though there's that fear.
And for me, like I speak of my personal experience, my daughter who's a junior in high school, and for whatever reason, she's able to navigate social media responsibly. Current middle schooler, not the case. If I could go back in time, she would have had a different trajectory of phones. And so I've learned a lesson on this. From the youngest now, we have like a smartwatch. So you can call, you can text, I can find you, track you, all these things that are so important for parents. But she doesn't have the same unfettered access to them. If I had a recommendation to all of the Apple and Android companies on the planet, say it should be a limited feature of a phone, some of those components, but doesn't have all the apps that are there. Because even if you tell your kids you can't have it, they can reload it on and then delete it out. Or they're going to go get it from their friend's phone. I banned my daughter for 3 months from her phone because she was getting into all sorts of behavioral concerns, only to find out that at school she was hopping on her Snapchat. So I don't think we can run away from this necessarily. But I think, yes, like waiting until the last middle school for those social wise, unless you have that kind of partnership where you're doing and you're monitoring, checking in, because that is a huge piece. And knowing how you can have the nefarious accounts that are hidden in different places that I don't even know all of the terms or the places. So there's a lot more going on with those phones that we know. Yeah, I like to simplify it when and where from my own parent lens.
Not to put too fine a point to it, but the surgeon recent study that this is probably one with this. So again, it's a matter of parents work in partnership with you to children appropriate use. But to Susan's point, relative, literally the brain is plastic. Remember your toddler? The note being able to have some self-regulation. Second root they go through. Literally, whatever the brain is focused on are the dendrites that get grown. Everything else dies off, literally, shuts down. Biologically, areas where could be child can no longer access. Brain is developing in that. It is appropriate of all of us working together. And I anticipate that from that the education that and us other educational professionals are going to receive some very clear guidance as to, that we will be sharing with parents and providing to parents. It's all working together to be as healthy and happy as.
I'm sorry. Parenting. I could put I see it, but am I doing?
Um, so in this case, it was actually part of our policy. So we didn't say like kids who we will put the phone in the office, and we do have tech, but most of the time put it away. So a lot of times kids pull things out to check pocket or your really strong office. Um, but it's really about getting them to get off of it and around them without punishing or being. That was how we talked it to our policy development. Reporting also reduce some of the. I actually, where I started online and quality on Instagram and looked at TikTok accounts, and there were 50 that were quality accounts of other. And then in the interview process, about how it was to have wondering if the picture was one that was dedicated to the bathroom. Like there's some stuff in the middle. But they're not realizing the impact of how weird our thoughts are about them. Yeah, but then people are figuring out that that's my fault. So that was part of it. We talked as a staff about how we were figure this out. Staff were pictures of staff who were. And so as we talked through it, we want students and parents to feel like they have access. That was a key part of it. Not block. We also wanted staff to feel like they not to have power struggles all cell phone. And so we really worked with about like on it in a pocket or a bag. You don't. Oh, here's. And it wasn't so much about this is a rule you're breaking. That was just how we wrote.
But it's an.
Indeed, yes. Okay. So we do, in fact, have students who get to put their phones, and a third or fourth time, like we make parents, right? It gets to be inconvenient. Struggling, we plan, which means dropping it off and picking it up. And we have had some parents who have called in and put my kid on a tech. Again, partnership. We're just working together.
I would just add into that, especially in the middle school. These are 11, 12, still learning. Everything starts with that. And the punitive aspects come in if that education, progressive discipline. Or you may become a partnership with parents that you have a couple different options.
And for poor reports. Very, very. Factory. Strategies.
I'll go first. So that's an interesting one. So the majority of the fights that I've been seeing in class, like, our kids are actually planning, and so many of them. Yes, I know, middle school place. I just saw a parent point to their own kid. What I'm talking about. So they plan it out, and somebody's filming, and then acting. and then they post it on how many people like it. We have had a handful of actual. They are almost 100% connected. I don't think there's a single that was not connected. Something that somebody posted, people were frustrated. So we've really just been working strongly on the reporting side. And, the reality is I don't need you to come and tattle on your friend. I mean, if you feel like you don't actually have to. You can just say, oh, you should probably be here 6th period. We can work with that. So just getting kids to understand, build the relationships, build trust that they're not going to lose their friendship, know about problems. And then you were asking like, what? Well, I'm pretty strict about it. So if you're creating an environment in school, then you know that I'm unhappy. And we will suspend kids. They will stay home. It's not my preference because I actually like to have them close where I'm productive and learn. But if we need to, we'll send kids home. And then we usually have a fairly stringent re-entry plan. So that could include stage transition. So you're transitioning during a lesson traffic time. We have told kids that they have to use single-user bathrooms instead of full-use bathrooms. They're creating problems. Regular bathroom. A long list of things that we can put in place to both interrupt and give us time to then work with what the problem is. So kids are not, they don't, other than the kids who are staging it, the other kids are trying to work on a real problem that they have. They have the skill, better tool. That's a piece of it. We've addressed the same, trying to work, building better tools and for the rest of their life. But when they're 21 years old, they can't go fight somebody.
I would add on to that. One of the things, proactive character that our district lesson, that is a piece, and that is our in-house more around treating people well, treating people kind. That doesn't prevent every single altercation that's going to, but we are seeing it themed of students where they're being egged on, and whether that's to state fake fight or state thing. Sadly, I think that has become one of the trends when people are looking at YouTube video posts and seeing how entertaining that is. We were all watching the nightly news and kind of a little lackluster. Sadly, drama sells. It does in the media. It does in social media. And I think our kids are starting to hate that a little, trying to coach them in the classrooms. Why are you not interrupting? Why are you not intervening? What if it was you that was on the other side of the situation? So trying to put their shoes into that. And again, connecting with parents, that's the proactive side, to let parents know that, hey, your child may not have punched anyone, but they were the first to whip out a phone. And to me, that is just as bad as going in and getting, because you are now staging this and showcasing this. And it's a sad critique, and that's another reason why we.
My name is Ashley. One thing I just love about from officers, a little bit more about like preparedness. I know about lockdown, about those. Love to hear like prepared or ours, and anything you'd like to.
I'll go first. We work with the schools very closely. Safety, obviously. Lockdown drills that we have, we're involved in that, and we like to invites other police officers as well come to these drills. We'll actually go around during the drill and make sure every classroom's doing the right thing. Vulnerable spot here. As far as active shooter training goes, have as like county-wide, like every police officer. This year, we on winter break, Walton High School hosted a big drill for officers around the whole county. So our SWAT team put it on. It's very good training in the sense of go through tactics in the beginning, and then you do a bunch of scenarios, and they really try to make it as possible to put some stress on the officers going through loud noises and go through that. We also do ongoing training as far as conferences, have best practices and stuff on this. And then anytime that there is an event, it's obviously unfortunate, but it's also opportunity things that may have gone right do or may have gone wrong, and we can talking about that and like how are we going to. It's a lot of that and full preparedness.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things is after one of these unfortunate situations, what we call debriefing, and we'll get together, we'll read the after action, and we'll kind of decide, or we'll kind of reevaluate how we do things. Is there a better way? What could we have learned from that situation? How can we improve? I think back to the unfortunate situation in where the officers they couldn't get into the class, didn't have. After that event, we looked at, hey, how can we improve? And we went out and bought would enable us to be able to get into now in each of the SROs and all of the supervisors' rams that push open it pry bars. So we learned that from looking at other events, figuring out how can we keep that from happening. So debriefing those type of situations. We do that as a partnership. I know after that incident, we met with Sue and all of our partners at the district and said, okay, what can we do? What have we learned this? Kind of deep, not only a police department, but as a team, and figure out what we need to do to be better.
And just to add to that, I think there's also, whenever there's an unfortunate incident, an opportunity to learn from. So we have regional quarterly meetings in the area with other agencies, other districts, and they do tabletop scenarios. When our partner, when our restaurant go to different back and share what they vice versa conferences and share, they come back and share better. I think one thing, just the December when we had the active shooting hosted at Walton High School. We always like to host because we like officers better. They know our buildings, and it was impressive. So the fire department was different counties that were involved, and when you hear about non-response, everything I heard because it was their tactical training stuff, it's go time. Not sit and wait. They're on it, and then they do a variety of different scenarios and different how rapid they respond and how they work together in a team. Same police department, but they've all been trained on how to work and how quick that they accomplish the tasks that's set forth. Very impressive. We invited our administrators to go. We had a lot of our administrators up and watched what was going on. All that helps, makes us feel more comfortable. And then it's always after every
paid, and mine's kind of thorough. And you, my question, is staff and they threat types of.
I remember what I was going to say about, but a few years ago we noticed, like, during a lockdown drill, that obviously it's important that officers are able to get in quickly. So we recognized that not all the officers in our department had keys or access, and if there's a will, there's a way we can get into a building, but obviously we're locking down the entire building, don't want anybody in. So we made sure everybody's got hard key, digital key, carry with them into the building. So that's another thing, like these things, that what's a possible concern, because time is very important. So. And then question, do all the staff know?
At the beginning of the year, typically we come in as SROs, and so before school starts, all the teachers have some training, and that's one of the things we try to come in and talk about, is in these situations, how are we going to react? What are we going to do? Not only what should you do, how should you react, but from the police department, this is what you're going to see when we respond. If a situation happens, this is what you're going to see from us. This is what you can expect from us. So I think we do that training, maybe not as we should, but I think for the most part, staff know.
And I would add in each and every one of our in-service days before school starts, we absolutely cover all of those protocols with our staff. We go as far as actually walking them out if we had to evacuate. So we try to cover each and every one of these steps, as well as start planting our staff. And a lot of times this goes into conversation with our students of, we can predict when we practice these, and our kids are generally in a classroom, so it's like lock the door, quiet. But we always try to think, well, what if we're not there? What if I'm in the commons? What if I'm in the bathroom? So what are these other things we can do? So we really do have to think outside the box. And unless you engage in conversations, I think it's incredibly valuable spending that time up front to start here, during the each trained, and then going through as much of that practical, logistical pieces, exiting, entering, all those things you can, just to be as prepared as possible.
K-12. And so the blue button that Karen shared with you, when that hits, it's basically lock your door, put your blinds down, get quiet, and get away from the door. We know that in active shooting situations, that if it takes any time at all for them to have to try to force, 9 times out of 10, they'll move on. That's why we want you out of the halls, we classrooms. Second thing is, if that blue button push, every single administrator on out all receive an immediate text message. Such a school gone into lockdown. And when we do the drills, they always tell us that. One time we had a situation, hit the button, and all of us started scrambling. So response is, but yes, this is a whole system. But Andy, you also try different times of the day. You have a full, and you have one of those situations. Try to think through scenario happen. Nothing is foolproof, but to the best of our ability, we try to train. It saddens me to have to do. But the fact of the matter is, happy. I appreciate it. It's in the office, and there's the principal knows, and a staff member protocol by which not activate. Yeah, because in hits, these people are not in country. They know it's have more law enforcement in one area in a very quick order when that thing gets hit.
And I can tell you, earlier this year, a neighboring agency, they had somebody enter their building that shouldn't have been, and the officer got on the radio and said, "I need code 3 cover," which is like an emergency. I can tell you, everybody from the local agencies, including myself, were en route to that agency because it's not every day you hear an officer in school. Fortunately, it wasn't a huge incident, wrestling with this person, but you hear that in a school, and it's officers immediately drop what they're doing and they go.
And just in case you're wondering, well, what if no one's near that blue button when it happens, or someone can't get to it? We have override codes to come onto the intercom, and we have the lingo to put the school into a lockdown on the fly, any telephone. So there's different ways that we.
And there was that false alarmist here at Tualatin. And the cool thing for staff was afterwards, a lot of them came up to me, Officer Brian, I did this, that right? Like you can like give them suggestions, but every one of them that came up to me, awesome. I took the kids here because this was very real. Like we have our drills and like we have that down, but this event was way more real for the staff, and it was hard, but it was also like awesome to see that did something. Point that out for the staff.
I just want to add one thing about that. This campus is all one place. So when the button was pressed at Tualatin, there's a lockdown that happened at Templeton. Staff did not know where the threat was, or there was an alarm, and they moved extremely quickly, everything right. And to me, it was very validating that what we had staff in the same happening across showed that our teachers were ready for the worst case. So to echo what Brian said, I got to see it firsthand. My staff did not know what was going on. They were very worried. Not exactly the right. I think that would happen in every single preparation. So, sorry, Dr. Sue. Oh yeah, about two more questions.
I guess a little bit of a. We've talked. We've. How. I'm really surprised because school. When it's time to ask kids allowed to spend book it. Familiar with book it. Just doing stuff on rather than as you the science. That's as I'm just why do we allow
I think one of the things that has come to light pretty recently after coming back from the pandemic, we've gone through a couple of iterations of how do we return to school and to normal, and 2 years without kids having social interaction with each other. Part of that was a big pushback from the screens. I was on the screens for 2 years. I don't want that anymore. So many of our teachers didn't want to go and bring those back out again. Similar to what I feel like we did when we first used devices in the classroom, we need to reintroduce the purpose for those devices in the classrooms. And we have some instructional coaches, specifically at elementary. We have them at all levels, but elementary, middle, and high school, where the curriculum that is available at the elementary level is so varied, and you have one teacher teaching a variety of different subjects, less so at the secondary schools, where we really need to talk about what the value and the purpose is of using that device. I think I've heard from a couple different principals how it's becoming a battle between the student and the parent. So the child wants to do something more entertaining. iPad is the thing in between. So it becomes this leverage. And so trying to reform that and reframe that so that our teachers have the tools, the devices are set up in a way that there for educational purpose and they aren't out there as a tug of war is part of the shift that we're trying to work our way through and figure out what's the right path. We're seeing a little bit of that. And
Thank you. The other question. I've heard talking to, they're saying student trying to ever and so I'm just wondering if there's any have that out. I know that opportunity so that we don't, that they're not pushing.
I know as we began this adventure, it was really clear, and I know Carol, Dr. Kinch talked a lot about that it should never be a reward. And we go round and round and round about that. That is definitely our philosophy. It's definitely what we have taught to. It's teacher training, professional development. I think that's part of what we need to bring back and bring to the surface again and really educate all adults in the building, whether it's the classroom teacher or an instructional assistant or the secretary, whether in the health room or wherever they might be, that this tool is here for learning and not to confuse that with the entertainment side of it is too easy for them to slip into that, and it's so accessible. And I think that's that balance we're trying to figure out. I think we see it in society as well. It's easy to just hand that over and get yourself 5 minutes of peace. So trying to figure out how we don't allow that to bring itself into the classroom or in the school building is what we're trying to battle with as well.
Much like on first. But the staff back to class, back the parents went into shock in class. Finally called hours. So the question is like, but contact a parent. Like that kind of are the staff trained? Got injured? No.
So I can speak a little bit from, we have a certain number of our possible adventures, but our practice, someone is come through the front office health room, report form there, and we do connect parents. Middle schoolers are a little bit more developed in being paid for what. I'm totally fine. I can go. But we do always try to bring them through there, get a set of eyes on. And if something's not right, we try to connect with parents. What would you do? Would you like to in on them? Do you want to talk to them on the phone? Pick them up and take them to an emergency room. We actually had a dislocated kneecap in PE 2 weeks ago. We have that exact same and work with mom, that student connected. So yes, that is the protocol. If someone is injured, it does get documented. You communicate with them. Somehow there was a gap here, and I don't know the situation of how that was presented from the student to that teacher, but I'm sorry that that occurred. Shouldn't be a typical experience.
How does an
Just add that's yeah. I'm sorry for your experience. That's highly unusual because I think anytime they do get we really want to check them out in the office. Like that. For our staff that are trained, we don't require as principal of Alton High. You have all your coaches that have to be first aid trained, and so typically at a high school, you're used to be less and less, but about half your staff was trained in first aid. So, Andy had said, if you have field stuff, you have it. And we have district nurses that are out of our under available by resource, or when something happens. Either they're oftentimes they're in the building or they can be.
One minor. We do require a certain number of staff in first aid and CPR trained, and there's certain positions that must be first aid and CPR trained. So both every year report to the Department of Ed. Yes, in Tualatin building. The coaches, special ed staff, the health room.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for your questions. We just one more question. Sorry.
One is about the first aid. Are anybody AED certified and do those sports with that first aid CPR? And my other question, circling back to the training for active shooters, how often do you have the kids know what to do? Very situation. Earlier this year, didn't seem like any kid knew what to do. Told us that they had never been to a training facility about what to do with active shooters. It was a false alarm, but it was still scary for the kids. They really got panicked. And then parents got panicked because they didn't know what to do. So how often do you train kids in fire, shooting, quake, whatever it's called now?
So we do fire drills every single month. We do an earthquake evacuation, and we do a minimum of 2 of the safety lockdown active. Now they're going to come at different points in the year, and I just heard a little reference of you haven't gone to a training facility. That's something that adults sometimes get invited to, but kids won't. It will just happen in our building, and usually that first one is talk students for middle school, and then as the year progresses, we spend a little less time telegraphing it's happening. See an actual response, a little bit more realistic to what that would look like.
Yeah, everyone's trained on first aid, where the AED. All the staff know where the AED. Is that the question? Where those devices are? We have like secondaries where we have athletics in our district activities, competitive sports. So those go the trainers when they're at home. So you go away, you relax. That schools, different schools.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the questions. We want to just close with some of our introduce our community partners. They can share with you what they do, so you can act. It's something that you would need. So I'm just going to call you guys up here. Actually, everybody at once, and just microphone. Explain your organization. So first person, Coral Smith with Safe Oregon, Connie Raymakers with Tigard Turns the Tide, Cindy Hillier with Tualatin Together and Communities That Care. So I'm just going to hand you the mic. And
My name is Coral Smith. I work with the Oregon State Police, and I'm the program manager for. I have a bunch of materials back. Some are anonymous line. So student app, you can call, you can website, and catch photos. And so Oregon State Police manages the contract, but really myself and a program analyst work directly and Department of Education to really make that program successful. So we have live people 24/7 calls to report a tip, and then work with the SR principal, and they get those.
Thank you. I'm Cindy Hillier. I'm the director of Tualatin Together. Funnel in. We have a student advocacy. One thing about the app right on my phone, the app on your phone, worry about finding it somewhere else. Another number I would encourage across the nation. That please stop by table health, positive mental health reports, supporting parents together. Tiger turns Connie Ram. Wealth of them. Tigard. Her also. Well, thank you very much.
thank you both. I think that concludes our formal proceedings tonight. So if you'd like to go check out some of those booths, we encourage you to do that. And thank you for coming. Appreciate you being here.